Hi, everybody. I bet the first question you have today is what is a thought print? So, a thought print is a tool I developed for a certain type of stress. It's the type of stress that is totally overwhelming, where you're on this Ferris wheel called the vicious circle and it's going way too fast and you can't get off. And that is caused by a lot of stress from different sources, usually. And that can be, it's very difficult to stop that wheel because there's a lot of fear and stress. And when you're afraid, you don't think clearly and you make bad decisions. So it really does, it's one of those places where you're just stuck with the stress. The thought print is a very simple way to get yourself to step down out of that and deal with some of the issues. And all you need is a 12 by 18 sheet of paper, which is like a drawing pad size. But you need a big piece of paper and something to write with, whatever you want, a pen, a Sharpie, colored pencils, colored pens, whatever. And then you're going to put that on a nice surface, sit down in front of it, and sit and sort of see that vicious circle going in your mind and how it has a lot of little tiny vicious circles twirling around in between the seats. And what you need to do is pull those out, name those things that are the cause of that. And if you have some trouble doing this, just try closing your eyes for a minute and relaxing, maybe take a deep breath. But usually it's pretty easy for people to see right away the words that represent the stress that's going on. And you just start writing those down. You can write them down in any way, shape, or form that you want to. Sideways, right ways. Do not make a neat list. You want to just take up the room in the paper and write down the word wherever you feel like putting it. And don't, we're not thinking about these, we're just naming. Okay. So once you have written down everything that you need to write down, you're ready to do the next step. And I've been doing the thought prints for quite a while now. And some of the early ones, I had a lot of stuff on there. So if that's the case, then you have like 50 words. Circle the ones that are the most important to you. Pick about 10, usually 15 even, and just work on those. But most people, it's manageable. So what I want you to do is look at each word and assign it a number, like from one up to wherever you're going. And just go through all your words and give them all a number. And when you do that, you have a picture of what is on that vicious circle. And there are internal stress and external stress. So if you write down something like anxiety, it's like anxiety can cause stress and stress can cause anxiety. So it can, just to help you figure out which is which, anxiety that comes from the inside, like internal anxiety, is stuff like, what if I get sicker? And that is like a panicky thought that is dominating your brain. And for internal sources of stress, there's there's a therapy for anxiety called cognitive behavioral therapy. And this is what I use. It's a simplified version. There are many programs out there to heal you with anxiety, but just to give you an example of the one I use, I have for all things, it's like you have to confront the incessant thought and face it. So I have my little trooper with the speaker on top and this siren, whoop, 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 pull over. And that will make me stop and look at the meaning of the word that I'm obsessing over. And then the second thing to do is to say, is this reasonable? And again, this is a very simplified version of cognitive behavioral therapy. It's not reasonable. It's reasonable to worry that your sickness may get worse. What flips it over into anxiety is that you can't get past that point. So you're confronting it with logic and you're saying, is this really reasonable? And the third question I ask myself is, can I do anything about it? If it's kind of unreasonable and I can't do anything about it, that means I can let it go. I can just let it go until later. I don't have to really worry about processing that. If it's external, if it's anxiety from an external source, like I can't pay my rent, that is, stress is not something you can fix all at once, but your body will have certain urgent things it's trying to call your attention to. So it's saying to you, you have to do something about this. You have to do something. And the key is that word something. You don't have to do anything but take a step, one step to deal with that problem, but you do need to do something. So if you can't pay your rent, I mean, can you borrow the money? Can you talk to the landlord? Can you find some rental assistance? Those are not easy things to do, but you only need to do one to really bring that level down. And then one step leads to a second step, depending on what happened with the first, and you can eventually solve the problem. However, you're not trying to solve the whole problem. You're just taking that one step to kind of step down. And I feel relief right away as soon as I deal with these things that my body is trying to, telling me, take action. And then there's a second type of thing that might be on your thought print, which is, I know I went back to some of my old ones, and exhaustion is a one that shows up over and over again. Some of these things, you can solve them in terms of getting stressed about them so that they don't come up anymore, but some of them, it remains the same. So exhaustion is something that the thing to do to take a step down from that is to realize that you are indeed exhausted and you cannot do anything. So that means you can't take any action on anything except the most urgent thing that you have to deal with. And once you identify that, then you take one step. I'll use the example of paperwork. That tends to give me a lot of stress, especially if I'm exhausted. So I will use the 3 minutes rule. If I can't find someone to help me, which is your first option, just find someone who can help you do it. And just having another person there is very reassuring. But if not, just work 3 minutes. Just do 3 minutes worth of work, and you'll find that that stress steps down and is relieved. And then there's another one from one of my early ones is I hate my life, which, that's something that can happen if you're dealing with a chronic illness and your whole life has been disrupted and you can't do the things you used to do. And, it is reasonable. But what your body is calling your attention to is like, you need to deal with this. You have to take some kind of action. And so I remember the first time it took me quite a while to think of one step, and that's okay. Just don't give up, keep trying. And finally, I'm like, I know, a hobby. I'll get a hobby. I've never had a hobby before. I have no spare time to have hobbies in, but now I certainly do. So it has to be something you can do in bed pretty much, or doesn't take a lot of physical energy. And like, as far as doing it in bed, sewing and woodworking are out because you don't want to lose those things in your bed. And I finally remembered my grandmother talking about how people who were related to Charlemagne, and I could tell she had that wish. Charlemagne was a famous French king from like the 9th century. And so I thought, okay, I'll do family history because I can do that in bed and it's something I can lose myself in. It distracted me. Like, someone was born in England. Okay, what town were they born in? What was life like then? What did the houses look like? I could keep myself entertained for long periods of time with family history. And the day came when I found that we were descended from Charlemagne, like millions of other people. But that for me was an excellent choice. So I think a hobby is a good thing, something to take up your time, and then also just sort of a time waster kind of a thing. Like, I like to play mahjong, and that's not anything that takes any real thought or work. It's something you can just, waste a few minutes playing, a little bit of dead time. Another thing that will come up on your thought print is something related to grief. I know on the one that I did a few days ago was like, I can't ever have another pet. And that's because I developed an allergy to fur. So that is grief because that's a loss. And I think a lot of times what your body is trying to say is honor that loss and deal with it in some way. I have a friend who has a cat, I can go visit the cat. I also bought myself this furry comforter that feels a lot like fur. And animals provide a lot of benefits to people who are ill. They lower your blood pressure and your stress. So it's okay to miss that loss, but to take something that's going to give you some comfort. So that is how you use a thought print. And I am not, I'm only sharing this as something that I worked out for myself and tried on myself. It's not meant to be any kind of official anything. I just hope it will help. I have shared this with other people, and most of them find it very helpful. So consider doing a thought print. I really recommend saving them because you'll be pleased to see how much progress you make over time. And I always enjoy the time that I have with you. And if you are in this situation right now of horrendous stress, just know there's somebody here who does understand what that's like. Sometimes that's what helps too. So have a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye.